Hello and welcome to High Tales of History, a history podcast where two sisters get high and surprise each other with a story from history. I'm Laurel, the older sister.
I'm Katie, by process of elimination, making me the younger sister.
Yeah.
It's the only other option left.
There's only one way to go with this. It is episode 3 of season 6, and it's my turn today. How are you doing, Katie? You doing all right?
Good. I've got my blue raspberry spelled correctly, by the way, and in my Lord of the Rings mug, you already know, I have tea.
Nice. Okay. Sorry. It took me a second. I was like, blue raspberry tea. And I was like, that sounds weird.
No.
I was like, I
had a blue raspberry edible.
Two separate.
Yeah,
things.
sorry. I had a blue raspberry edible, and then I have my tea.
It's too high. Yeah. I was going to say, I'm just high as hell. Sorry. I had an edible and I'm like, oh no. What kind of tea is it?
Berries. Irish breakfast.
Oh. Berries is the name. I thought
yes.
Berries. I thought you were like berries. Not. I was like,
yeah, dude. I just picked some berries out of the backyard and tossed it in there.
It's like berries and twigs.
It wouldn't totally
strained it. Like what?
Right?
I'm so confused. Thank you for saying the full name of tea, because I was like, berry tea?
Yeah, the Irish breakfast tea, man. That's the good stuff. That's the really strong stuff. Whew.
I appreciate a strong cup of tea.
Yeah, me too. It wouldn't be like abnormal. Be like, yeah, dude, I made this tea out of this like weird plant I went and found. I found that when dodging all the vultures that are now landing on my property. So there you go.
That's such a metal thing to say. Vultures all over my property.
One day, dude. I'll let you know. I'll see if I can capture a picture with them. They're not small.
No.
Their wingspan is like 6 feet. And they swoop super close now. For the listeners who are unaware, I was defrosting meat on my porch, which I will no longer be doing because the turkey vultures came down and helped themselves. I was like, well, shit. But also, I've always wanted a vulture as a pet, so, like, it could be worse. Like, I'm kind of into that idea. But, yeah, there's just something, like, super, like, macabre. Like, the level of opulence to, like, stand upon the porch, because it's kind of like a balcony. Mm-hmm. Like, look out over the domain with, like, vultures all around you. I want to be that weird person in the neighborhood. I'm into it.
I want to be that, but with, like, ravens and crows.
I mean, I'd take those too. I just haven't seen them around, so I gotta kind of settle for what I got.
Welcome to the Smoke Circle, everyone. We're so glad you're here. Hey, Katie, do you remember when the...
well, first of all, you started with, do you remember? I'm like, oh, this is... maybe?
Hey, kids. Hey, remember when they deleted part of the Constitution earlier this month in August?
That I remember, yes.
So
yes, I'm familiar.
I had a goof here when I start talking about the National Archive here in a minute. Change anytime I say National Archive to Library of Congress. The post was originally on the Library of Congress's Instagram page. If you're watching the video of this, I have that posted up so you can read that exact post. I took a screenshot of that. But yes, I mean, the National Archive was involved just, because it's part of the archive and national record. But specifically, it was more of the Library of Congress that was putting out this information.
We were talking about erased history with me last time, and it kept happening. So I was like, literally after we released that episode and, moved on from that one, it was like, man, it's still going. So let me just history corner for a second on this history podcast, since this is something we're talking about and things are happening in real time with it. Back on August 6th, I happened to see a post from the U.S. National Archives, and they were like, whoopsie-daisy. We accidentally, on our electronic version of the Constitution, we had a coding error, and some things got mistakenly deleted, but it's okay. Like, we fixed it. Everything's okay. Whoopsie-daisies can happen. The tech people jumped in to then say, like, yeah, that could happen, just in the sense that, like, the reason that they give is that the coding error would have been anything written outside of, like, these certain, like, values gets taken out. So if you don't like put that value at the end of what you want to include to go online, this is how I understood it, then yeah, it gets deleted. If you don't like, basically, if you don't put your parentheses at the end of your thing, that's anything outside the parentheses. Think of it like that.
Okay.
That's how I understood the tech guy talking about it. And I was like, okay, I'm going to benefit of the doubt, right? So funny enough, though, is all the sections that the current administration doesn't really like. It's really protective sections, too, like about the ones that deal with habeas corpus and the limits on federal power and the Congress's authority to set tariffs. So they're big, large sections and chunks of the Constitution's electronic version with the National Archives that were taken out, and then, oops, just kidding. So that was something that flew under the radar of a lot of major news outlets, but I happened to see the U.S. Archives post or story or something like that, and I might not have like noticed it. It was like an apology post, like a little like text square, and I might not have noticed it if it weren't for an academic historian that I follow, and she had reposted it, and I was like, oh, okay, so I'm gonna go back and pay attention to this.
It's a good thing people are looking out.
Good thing. Also, currently going on, the Smithsonian, guys, back the Smithsonian, back history, back museums. They're trying to keep it.
I saw that. I was like, bro, I've never even been to the Smithsonian. You can't touch it.
I gotta pull up an article about this. I'm doing this off the cuff here, but the Smithsonian has many various museums, and the National Zoo and the national portraits and stuff like that. Like it's a huge amount of museums there, and they've been getting some shit from the current administration, from Trump's administration, to say, we don't like what you've got going on here in the Smithsonian. We think that you focus too much on bad stuff, and you're very negative with your exhibits, and slavery wasn't that bad, and we shouldn't really dwell on the past because all that does is divide us. It's woke. Also, they have at the Museum of American History, they have a section that's about presidential impeachments, right? And it's listing all the people that have been impeached or resigned and things like that.
Right.
And
something we learned about in school.
Yeah, just stating the facts. Trump's been impeached twice, and whatever. They didn't like that one. They didn't like that one. Take that off. Take that out of there. Don't say that. Only 3. What does it say? Something like they've changed it to be like only 3 were seriously, like basically his impeachments like didn't count, kind of thing. Like only.
Well, I think people also don't understand what impeachment is. All it is your charges are being brought to you. It doesn't mean anything other than that. But yeah, definitely, it did happen. Mm-hmm. Yeah. We all know it happened because we lived through it. Yeah. So.
Yep. So there's that. And the Smithsonian's like, right, we'll change it. And then they said, no, fuck off. We're not going to change it. And now they are in the crosshairs to have some of the exhibits taken down, reworded. It's got to reflect what they call it? A ideological fashion and a pro-American fashion. Only the good stuff, none of that bad stuff. Don't downplay that. There's nothing about the future and brightness and success of America. It's out of control. We're going to go into 8 museums and we're going to check to make sure everything is up to an ideological fashion. So those 8 museums include National Museum of American History, the upcoming National Museum of the American Latino, the National Museum of Natural History, National Museum of African Art, National Portrait Gallery, Smithsonian American Art Museum, and the National Museum of Asian Art. So those are all going to get a review to make sure that they don't promote an anti-American agenda, quote. So yeah, Smithsonian's already done some changes and then gone back on some changes. I'm not sure where that ended up settling, but I know that went back and forth, I think, a time or two. The Smithsonian hasn't really responded to a lot of requests with this, but they did put out a statement by Bunch, the 14th Secretary of the Smithsonian Institution, to their colleagues. The Smithsonian continues to appear in multiple news stories and social media posts. I have received questions and comments from many of you. The Smithsonian will always be shaped by scholarship and guided by our core values. While our collections may evolve to reflect new discoveries and insights, the intellectual honesty and the integrity of our research and collections will not change. Throughout our 179-year history, we have listened to and learned from our fellow citizens as part of our mission to provide Americans with high-quality, factual content and world-class science. While we cannot know what future critiques will hold, I do know that I have the greatest faith in your ability to preserve and effectively represent an institution whose goal is simply to help a nation better understand its past, produce and convey the most accurate science and scholarship, and serve the greater good. Smithsonian
Eloquently worded.
Yeah, Smithsonian, hang in there, guys. I'll put links to those articles I was reading from in my show notes. But yeah, so I just a little history corner, just telling you what's going on currently with history in America right now. But yuck, we don't like that kind of censorship around here, which is why we say things like "fuck." You ready? You ready to jump into my actual story, Laurel? Look, I am pissed as a fart. Look at my eyes. Look at my eyes, you guys. And I am so angry. My eyes are so wide right now, except they're actually not. They're almost closed. But I am fired the fuck up. Katie's got berries and twigs in her cup. I've just finished my coffee. I'm ready to talk to you about some good history. You ready?
Oh, I'm born ready.
So I was going to write about something else this week. I'm going to push that back to my next episode. But this one, I've actually wrote this episode a long time ago and was not just saved it, put it back. And it's like, here it is in such a great moment to pull it out.
Until the moment was right.
The moment
and then
was
you
right.
were like, you looked at it and the lights shine down from above,
Like,
choirs
this
of
is
angels sang, and you're like, now is the time.
Mhm.
Oh, the time is now.
It is now.
It was a John Cena reference.
Okay.
Yeah, the
Right.
time is now. That was his thing.
Oh,
You know the Doctor of Thugonomics? Come on, Laurel.
I know who John Cena is.
You better know John Cena. No, you don't. You've never seen him.
I've never
Don't
seen
even
him.
say that. Who do you think you are?
Wrestling's so silly and so fun. I love it. I don't watch it. I don't know any of the well, I know the people of which you speak about, but that's about
Of course.
it, so.
I think
It's
that's
fun
where
to-
you left wrestling.
Mhm.
It's okay. If you need to know the updated storylines and what's going on, I got you.
All right. Katie, Smoke Circle, let's get in here. Open up your snacks. Get that tea. I am going to talk to you a lot of bit. I'm going to talk to you about a figure that mostly comes up in American high school history class. I don't know about anywhere else in the world. I'm not going to make assumptions, but if anyone studied American history, this is a guy that's going to come up for you. And you might spend a lot of time on him and his effects and his influence in American politics in the middle of the 20th century, or like, yeah, I'm vaguely aware of the name. But he messed up a bit. He messed up. He messed up a whole lot of it.
The fact that doesn't really narrow it down is like,
Yeah.
this could be a couple people.
Who could it be? Joseph McCarthy was born on November 14th, 1908, near Appleton, Wisconsin, in a little town called Grand Chute.
Oh no, he was up by Appleton?
Yeah.
Oh,
Sorry,
yeah.
Wisconsin.
Yeah, man. It's right. Portage is over there as well, if you wondered.
I wasn't wondering about the specific geography and location of Portage, but I do know now. I know this now, and
I'm here to tell you, man.
Thanks.
I know where Portage, Indiana is, and I know where Portage, Wisconsin is. Why I know that? No one knows.
That's
But point
what
being,
you know. Yeah.
It's up like the Appleton is almost kind of like by the Dells.
Right. Okay. That's where I was
it's a little
imagining
bit past it, I think, but it's all in
Okay.
that like really pretty area.
Yeah.
Who doesn't love the Wisconsin Dells? It's like the jewel of the Midwest.
Jewel of the Midwest. Something like that. Yeah. Wisconsin Dells.
To live in the land of corn and sunsets and parking lots.
So much concrete, so much tack and cheese.
Oh,
not
and
like
corn
cheesy
sweat.
And also cheese and corn sweat. God. Academically speaking, he was a smart kid. I mean, I can't speak to his common sense. I don't. If he had so when he was younger, he didn't do so great as he got older. But anyway, book smart wise, academics, he did really well, and then went on to Marquette Marquette University in Milwaukee. Milwaukee is Algonquin for the good land. Sorry.
You better believe it, the land of beer and cheese.
Sorry, Milwaukeeans. I know you probably hate the hell out of that, but yeah, Milwaukee. He went to Marquette there, and while he was there,
I had no idea this guy was from Wisconsin.
He's from Wisconsin.
God damn it!
Yeah. I am sorry to say.
He besmirches the name of the greatest state in this union. Listen, no offense to everybody else, but like, I just
reel those Wisconsin listeners in.
Dude, I love Wisconsin, man. And like, recently someone else was talking about they didn't like it. I think it was like political reasons. I was like, yeah, but have you been there? Like, I guarantee you it'll change your mind. Like, I mean, it's a very pretty state too. Like, if you get away from from touristy spots, like Devil's Lake, gorgeous. Like, up in the Dells, there's spots where you can go on, like, there's a Witch's Gulch. That's a really pretty rocky hike. Think like forested canyons a little bit, kind of like the Shawnee Forest on the southern end of Illinois. Yeah, no, Wisconsin's beautiful. And like, you know, and there's beautiful beaches that border Lake Michigan. I love me the Great Lakes. I have such a soft spot for the Great Lakes. Like, when I get into warm ocean water, I'm like, gross, what is this? Like, I'm so used to, like, you know, our freshwater. Man, that's glacier fed, baby. And yeah, I don't know. I love Wisconsin. And like, truly, I am absolutely, if you couldn't tell by the fact that I dedicated a whole episode to the history of cheese, I am obsessed with dairy. I love dairy. But Wisconsin, man, just love Wisconsin.
This has been brought to you by the Wisconsin Board of Tourism.
It's like Tim Allen with fucking Michigan, pure Michigan. As Katie's like, I love Wisconsin.
You really went for it. I feel like we need some compensation from Wisconsin's tourism section.
Dude, I fucking should. Yeah. I mean, like, hey, I'm also going to stand up for everyone shits on Illinois, and I'm not going to listen to that bullshit. We are not at the bottom in the Midwest. I'm going to stand up for Illinois for a second, which, by the way, you know what Illinois means? Tribe of superior men. So fucking come at me, first of all. And another thing.
Yeah, you tell
There
him.
is, man, you could just drive forever in this state and never get out of it.
Dude, it feels like it.
We've got beautiful beaches too. We have beautiful forested areas as well. If you look up our state parks, there's a Trail of Tears section down on the southern end. It's in the Shawnee as well. Listen, there's some beautiful things in Illinois. Everyone's crapping on Illinois, but I got to tell you, I mean, yeah, it's expensive as fuck to live here, but other than that, I'm not letting Illinois go down without a fight. Man, I love Chicago.
This has been brought to you by the Illinois Board of Tourism. Visit the land of Lincoln. We've got a big silvery bean and cool shit.
Come touch our bean.
And so much corn. You know, like that's
there's a giant cross in the middle. Remember the giant crucifix on the way to Effingham?
Check out our giant cross next to the adult novelty shop.
Anal beads, and you're like, should those be placed that close together? Somehow that feels wrong.
Hey, do you want to know more about Wisconsin, though?
Yeah, dude.
Specifically, Joseph McCarthy of Wisconsin.
Dude, he's a black mark on Wisconsin history, man.
I'm sorry, Wisconsin. So while he's there in Marquette, he's elected the president of his law school class. He earns his law degree in 1935 and works his absolute dick off trying to be... I I was like, I nearly said tits, which would have made so much more sense because that's what something I would have said. It works his tits off.
Who words it that way?
Works his dick off. Anyway, it just works. It works his ass off, guys. Sorry. Trying to be a circuit judge for Wisconsin's 10th Judicial Circuit. The hard work pays off because he becomes the state's youngest circuit judge at the age of 30.
That's like the age that I am now.
Yeah, could you imagine being a circuit judge?
Yes, I have great judgment.
Yeah.
Nah, put me in charge, dude. I'd make fair calls.
Okay. Nice. Katie.
So yes, I could imagine that. I was ready at the ripe age of 27. I have great judgment.
I have judgment and opinions, and let me tell you.
Maybe that's how he got there.
Yeah.
I'm starting to see a trend here.
Right? You're like, oh, okay. So it's years later, 1942, July 1942, and McCarthy takes a leave of absence from being a circuit judge, and he answers the call of Uncle Sam. You need to fight in my war. There we go. What was it?
We want you.
We want you. There we go. It's like one of the most recognizable symbols and posters, and I trip on that last hurdle.
Right? Like, I was like, of all the things to not remember, that's like in the biggest, reddest, boldest script possible.
Yep. They're like, hey, your final hurdle is literally a pencil on the ground. Step over the pencil. Don't trip. I just faceplant. There we go.
Notice that the font they chose was red, Laurel. Why does red matter?
Passion.
No, McCarthyism.
Oh.
I was
Those
like,
damn commies. I see.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
So Uncle Sam, yeah, he goes to World War II. The war is fully in swing now, and America's recently joined the fight at the end of 1941. So McCarthy enters the war as a first lieutenant in the Marines, where he was part of the dive bomber squadron, flew a handful of missions where he
was a Marine too?
Yeah.
What?
So he's considered like more in a safe.
What the fuck went wrong? Is my question so far.
I know. I really want to build this up. I want to build this up for you guys. Yeah, he flies a handful of missions, which were like considered like quote unquote like more safe missions, that kind of thing. Because later,
yeah, he still served.
Oh no, for sure. And I don't mean to diminish what he's doing. The reason why I say that is because later he's going to lie about being wounded in action and like seeing a lot of combat.
Oh,
like that.
Create a whole story of which there is no truth.
Yeah. So I just want to say, like, typically these missions were considered safer missions. That's not to take away from his service at all. Not at all. I point that out because yeah, it's going to be something that kind of starts to mar his
Comes up
reputation later. Yeah.
Put a pin in that. Remember
Put a pin on that. There it is.
I'm going to immediately pull that pin back out because I realized that I forgot to come back to this, and I was editing this and I was like, wait a second, this is a really important point that I need to get across. Joseph McCarthy was shrouded in a lot of myth, and they were myths that he perpetuated if it suited his needs. And I have to be honest, I found out even more about this man after I recorded this episode because, again, I wrote this episode for another podcast a couple of years back, and McCarthy's war record is something I spoke about with the hosts and how he used it to shape public opinion about him and get votes. But it's something I spoke more about like off the cuff and didn't really flesh out in full in my notes. And I'm going to be back again later on to add some more information that I found out during the editing of this episode. So you're going to have Editing Laurel come back here again in the future. But as for his war wound, quote unquote, McCarthy walked with a limp after the war, which was the result of a badly broken leg. While the break was received during wartime, it was certainly not from war itself. It happened during an initiation celebration for sailors crossing the equator for the first time. During the hazing, Joe and other initiates, they had to run with a bucket on one foot through a tunnel of paddle-wielding seamen. During this hazing, he fell down a stairwell and he broke his leg. After the war, he claimed the resulting limp was from his plane crash landing. It didn't. Or from pounds of shrapnel from anti-aircraft fire. It wasn't. In fact, his whole Tail Gunner Joe nickname and war record was a purposely created persona for the folks back in Wisconsin. During his time in the Pacific Theater in World War II, McCarthy wanted to break the record for the most ammunition used in a single mission. So he went for a ride-along, strapped into the tail gunner's seat on what was considered to be a safe mission where no enemy aircraft were expected to be found. They weren't expected to get into any sort of trouble. And he was allowed to shoot away at as many coconut trees below as he wanted. And then as a matter of routine, the public relations officer gave him a record and wrote up a press release for the Wisconsin papers. And really, to me, it's just giving, sure, honey, you can go out on your mission, but you have to take your little brother Joe with you and let him shoot the gun in the back, A few weeks after this, McCarthy referenced the all-time record that was given to him as, quote, "This is worth 50,000 votes to me." And Tail Gunner Joe, the war hero, was created. As you'll hear in the rest of this episode, this kind of fabrication isn't the only time that McCarthy uses popular opinion to shape narratives that will suit his ambition.
Yeah. While he was still on active duty, he started running as a Republican nominee for Senate. So he's getting in there. He's getting involved. He loses his first campaign. But in 1946, which is now after the war, he wins in an upset against Senator Robert M. La Follette Jr. La Follette. There we go. Follette. Why is that hard to say? Robert M. La Follette Jr. And Joe becomes the youngest member of the Senate. Boom, boom, boom. He is doing it. He is the youngest circuit judge at 30, and he's also the youngest member of the Senate. Milestones. Firsts. The young senator, he is pretty quiet, keeps his head down, doesn't make a lot of waves in Senate necessarily. He works on housing legislation and sugar rationing. Tends towards conservatism in his votes and opinions.
I forgot we had a sugar shortage there.
Yeah. His votes tend towards conservatism and also his opinions, but he generally is flying under the proverbial radar for 4 years. No big deal. Young senator from Wisconsin, Joseph McCarthy. There he is. So I'm gonna leave him in his first term there, doing a generally good job, not a quiet job, right? I'm gonna leave him there. Boop. Also put a pin in him.
Hanging out, eating bratwurst.
Sure, right? Maybe some cheese curds.
Has to. Did they have cheese curds in the 50s?
I don't know. Can you get on that?
Fucking oath, I'm on it.
Look up when cheese curds happened.
Around 12,000 years ago, it says. I was like, what? It says it's potentially dating back to the Neolithic period.
Okay, well, we're good.
Okay, so in Wisconsin, that's bullshit. I'm not going that far back. You can't call that cheese curds. So in Wisconsin, they happened in the 1800s, is what it says.
Okay.
It says these are thought to have been a part of early human diets as a result of the cheese-making process. Listen, I will buy that, but I don't know that I call them cheese curds.
I mean, I would think the criteria around cheese curd is a chunk of cheese.
In dough.
Dough, yeah.
But
breaded,
what if they did put it in
fried.
dough?
Or breaded, I mean, not in dough, but yeah.
Yeah.
I know, yeah. Sorry, same page, different paragraphs there. Yeah.
Pretty much. I'll look more
really
into
would
it.
love some cheese curds right now.
Dude, me too. I will advise on the history of cheese curds. Don't let me forget that.
So we got a pin in Joe. Back in September 1945 to early 1950, America was in its first 5 years out of World War II, which ended kind of strangely for those that were involved in the Allied forces. So for some context, the Soviet Union became an ally of the Allied powers. There we go. Wow, that was weird.
Because Hitler split the army and decided to fight a war on two fronts, which was insane. But remember my episode on the Nachtwesen? Or something like that, the Night Witches? Yeah. But it's about the Russian pilots who flew in the dead of winter, which is holy.
Yeah.
Boy, did they deserve to be remembered. Yeah, right?
Cardboard box and some canvas.
Right? Yeah. Their hands would stick to the
flashlights.
metal.
Yeah. Flashlights and they're
And they got the crappiest planes, and they're what held off Moscow from being taken over under the Nazi regime because they had to wait for reinforcements to come from the rest of the country or something like that. But woof.
with that, is like sort of like the enemy of my enemy is my friend kind of thing is what ended up happening. They joined the Allied forces. And once the mutual enemy was taken care of, there was this scramble for dominance.
There's a power vacuum.
Right. Berlin, right? Everyone's like marching into Berlin together. And some people are like kind of looking and then like walking a little faster and like doing one of those things like, wait, hang on, quick, get in there. Germany gets divided up. Berlin gets divided up, especially like Berlin Wall and all of that, right? Okay. So there we go. That's our little fast forward of history there. But from that moment on, it's like a series of micro or like I wrote meso aggressions that kick off the Cold War. So there's perhaps a little more nuance to it, of course. Like I'm trying to make this a little bit
spark note it.
Yeah, spark note this shit right here for a second. But just to get the idea of the Cold War, starting quite literally at the very end of the Second World War, Soviet Union was communist. It's like scary, cold, hard. They hate freedom. They're atheists. It's like they're a really good like Cold War enemy. That's the complete opposite of like what America was. And like
I didn't know Russia was atheist. I thought they were super like Roman Catholic.
Well, that was like the communist.
Interesting. I didn't know that. I learned something I've never heard today.
I think technically, yeah, people were whatever religion they are, but like communism was supposed to be like this atheistic sort of.
I didn't know about that aspect about it. That's news to me. That's new.
The Bolshevik or the Russian Revolution in 1917, the Russian Tsar is overthrown. That was a really scary thing for the United States. And it kicked off what was known as the first Red Scare. It's the idea that communism could spread quickly, like is thought of as cancerous or like a mold. Like it spread one thing to the next really fast. And it was strongly believed that there would be a domino effect from border sharing countries to fall to communism, right? Like if Russia, then Mongolia will be communist. If Mongolia, then China. And if China, then Vietnam. It's like it was this whole like cascade effect or belief in that being the effect. There we go. That was really difficult. The late 40s showed the world what was happening with the Eastern Bloc becoming Soviet and then communism spreading into China in 1949. Now there's the talk of it going into the Korean Peninsula because the northern half's controlled by Soviet troops since Japan's defeat in World War II, right? The Korean War, which begins June 27th, 1950, continues for 3 years. And then later we have Vietnam as part of that as well too. The fear for Americans as they're like watching communism spread in the last half of the 1940s was that the country was a target for the USSR trying to subvert the American way of life and everything about America, right? Like I said, they're kind of like the antithesis of what America is, right? Or, American way of life, American values.
Right. The traditional
right
American values. Yeah, they're the exact opposite. Mm-hmm. So the natural antagonist.
Mm-hmm. Which I think is probably why you get some really great like US versus Soviet Union sort of movies that come out of the Cold War era.
Absolutely. The Rockies, that there's like Rocky a hockey one. Oh God, yeah.
The rivalry was, it is like a very
deep-seated
natural competition there between two countries that are very, and you know what, like the thing is, like in a lot of ways you're right, it's like the total antithesis of the other one, right? But there's a lot of things that in that one-upmanship of each other, I mean, some people could say like, oh, there's some parallels too, so it is kind of an interesting, like you have a lot of great 80s movies that have like that Russia v US.
Something I think Soviet. That is very American, that is also very Russian, when a lot of people don't know, is patriotism.
Mm-hmm.
They have incredibly patriotic people, like both countries, like feel very strongly about their countries, like just America. It's like Russia, but whatever that is in Russian. I don't know what Russia is in Russian. I'm assuming it's not Russia. That's English.
I mean, certainly the alphabet's not even the same.
No.
So then adding to that general fear of like just the Soviets are trying to subvert the American way of life is that amongst the American public, like they look just like us communists. Ooh. They could be living and working amongst us and we would never know because they look just like us, communists. I don't know why. I'm sorry. I don't know why I'm acting like that. It's the weed, but yeah, right. Like I could be a communist and I would be hanging out with anybody else and no one would know unless I.
Right. Spying on us, dude.
Spying. So in Congress, there was legislation moving through called the Munt-Nixon bill. That same Nixon, although I just said that really slow and struggled over that, but the Munt-Nixon bill and the McCarran Act. In the Munt-Nixon bill, which passed overwhelmingly in the House, was a law that required people to register that they were members of the Communist Party.
You mean wear a gold star?
Right? Well, part of me is like, it's not like it gives you any sort of like certain way that you look necessarily.
Correct. I was going to say, it's not like I identify as communist. It's like, I mean.
Right? You could be any nationality and race and like whatever. And it's like, I don't know. Anyway, but yeah, you had to like register.
It's more of an ideal than anything else.
Right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's weird.
They're like, you have to register. And then the McCarran Act, which is that second piece of literature or legislation going through, took it a step further and allowed for the, quote, emergency detainment of subversive communists. This also passed the House, but it gets stuck when it gets to the Senate. And it really is these pieces of legislation that really reflected a lot of the sentiment of the American people. And then it happens. January 1950, a State Department employee by the name of Alger Hiss
was accused of being a communist spy. Like, holy shit, they're amongst us. They're in our State Department. Now, the trials of Alger Hiss were bonkers, but ultimately he did serve a prison term for 3 years, 8 months, but it was for perjury and not for espionage.
They've infiltrated. They're on the inside, man. Right? That's all that the American public needed was like, oh shit. Guy is in the State Department, is a communist. He's a spy, a communist spy. Oh my God. The story of Alger Hiss, though, is potentially tragic. And I suppose it depends on what one believes is true. Trying to present neutral. I'll present both sides here. A brief synopsis is that Alger Hiss, who did work in the State Department, was named by Whittaker Chambers, who was a journalist, a communist, and a Soviet spy, that Hiss also was a part of his espionage ring. Hiss always denied it, and he went through 2 trials and was convicted on the second one, 1950 of January.
I thought you weren't able to be tried for the same thing twice, double jeopardy.
The first one resulted in a hung jury. A hung jury typically leads to a mistrial, and a mistrial doesn't prevent a retrial. So then in the second trial he had, there was a conviction. He was then retried for the same perjury charges, and in the second trial was convicted. Therefore, his 2 trials for the same perjury charges, where the first resulted in a hung jury and the second in a conviction, do not violate the principle of double jeopardy. Thanks, Google.
Thanks for double checking on that. I was sitting there, I was like, why can't you be tried for the same thing twice?
And
That's
I was like,
right.
I was like, there's a reason why it didn't work, and I don't know why.
Makes sense. Mistrial. Yeah. I forgot that was a possibility because it would still be being tried again for it. Yeah, just weird. It's almost like, like you were tried for it, but like nothing happened.
So then Alger Hiss serves, and years later the Soviet Union went into their records, and they were like, nope, we don't know who was connected to, like, or if he was one of ours. Like, so even the Soviets didn't claim him later. Like, we don't have any record of him. This is like years later, I guess, when they were opening up some of their files. So there just seems to be some confusion around Alger Hiss's life and like who he really was. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the trial was huge. And because of its high profile nature, it's thought that this encouraged the passing of that Munt-Nixon bill and the McCarran Act, because like this thing blows up and they're like, well, we need to stop this now. We need to make sure people are registered, and we don't want communists in the government, especially as spies. Like no spies in the government.
Isn't that kind of like the goal of any government, is to not have spies in it?
I mean, you wouldn't want spies in any of your governments anyway, but
right.
It goes back to the McCarran Act goes back to the Senate a second time. Now, President Truman at the time was not having like the red hysteria as it was starting to become, and he was like vetoing some of these bills, but then he gets overturned by Congress. So that's like presidentially speaking, that's where that's at.
Oh man, the scene is really set for Joe McCarthy to come in and create some ripple effects that are going to last for decades in America. This guy really steps in it, y'all. Even defending Nazis at one point. It's coming, girl. So we are about to get into all the effects of McCarthy and his Red Scare and the way he would use propaganda and use public opinion for his own ambitions. But before we get there, hey, hi, welcome. We're so glad that you are in the Smoke Circle today. And if you've been enjoying yourself so far, please make sure that you are liking and following the show. And then that way you can know when the next episode comes out. Never miss another episode again. And if you really like what we're doing, please make sure that you rate and review to help our show get seen and heard by more history lovers like yourself. We're also on social media. We're on Instagram at High Tales of History, or on TikTok at High Tales of History Pod. We also have the Best Buds Club, which is our Patreon. Over there, we have early release for episodes, extra content, movie nights on the big brown couch, historical cooking videos, guest interviews. That's the place where you get more access to your favorite stoner Midwest sisters who love history. It's a 24/7 smoke circle over there. But I know that you are looking forward to hearing how Joseph McCarthy is going to fuck some shit up. So without further ado, let's pass it on to part 2. Before I really get into part 2 here, I have this little known chapter of Joe McCarthy's life that is an absolute doozy. And I had not heard of it when I originally researched this story, but I came across it yesterday as I was editing. I went back to double check something I had said during the episode and came across this article from the Smithsonian magazine. There aren't a ton of historians that talk about this unless you're reading a book on McCarthy's life, but it's wild. And I'm very surprised that this is something that doesn't get talked about more as part of his legacy and part of his biography. So during World War II, there's the Battle of the Bulge. A lot of people have heard of that battle. It ended with a surrender to the Nazis from Allied troops, specifically American troops, and then resulted in what was called the Malmedy Massacre, in which 350 unarmed American POWs and 100 Belgian civilians were killed. About 50 Americans survived, and they only survived essentially by playing dead or overcoming their wounds. And they were able to track down 75 of the culprits, from generals to rank and file German soldiers. The trial of these Nazis was held in the spring and summer of 1946 in the former concentration camp of Dachau in Germany. Now, I'm about to say when I get into the rest of part 2 that in McCarthy's first term, he was kind of flying under the radar. He wasn't doing a ton. He wasn't doing or not doing a lot, right? But in the middle of his first term, he actually was. And he decided that even though he is an ex-Marine and an uber patriot, right? He fabricated a greater war story so he could look like a hero when he came back home. And he became an apologist for these Nazi perpetrators of the bloodiest slaughter of American soldiers during World War II. Now, why he did this it really seems to be a mystery to a lot of people, especially to historians. Like, why would he jeopardize this war hero reputation that he had built for himself to defend the treatment of Nazis? And so I'm going to put the full article to the Smithsonian magazine in the show notes under the section mentioned in the stories, and I'll label that. But I'll give sort of a Cliff Notes version. It's thought that his fascination with this and why he took this on as a cause grew out of a seemingly genuine fear that Germans were being mistreated after the war, right? Just because they are Nazis doesn't mean that they shouldn't be given a fair trial, doesn't mean that they shouldn't be tortured. Now, unfortunately, many nations throughout history have done things like that. So I understand that might be a cause that he might decide to take up. So he wants to make sure that America's prisoners of war, no matter who they are treated fairly. Okay. So it's thought that maybe because Wisconsin has a large German immigrant population, that maybe his constituents would applaud him for trying to defend the German people. Okay, there's some people that put that forth as a theory. A more troubling theory, though, and something that does have quite a few various bits of evidence for it, was that it was driven by anti-Semitism. He frequently and casually used anti-Jewish slurs quite a bit. Is this something that his friends knew? Is this something that's acknowledged by his biographers? He had a whole list of slurs that he would use against Jewish people. His friends even said he had a copy of Hitler's Mein Kampf and would wave it around saying, quote, "That's the way to do it." But they were also quick to add that Joe was just being provocative. I don't know about you, but I don't own a copy of Mein Kampf and would say that's the way to do it. But okay, let's put that in the column. Unfortunately, the allies that came to support him of these Nazi POWs was the Holocaust-denying Ku Klux Klansman Wesley Swift, who jumped right on board with McCarthy and was like, yeah, these guys aren't so bad. Let's make sure that they get a fair shake. Like I said, I'll link this article so you can read it in full. I'm just trying to kind of hit some key points here. But after all of the stink that he made about potential mistreatment of these POWs, people went in. Doctors went in. Humanitarians went in to see for themselves, to make sure that they were being fed, that they were treated fairly, that there wasn't torture that was happening, that they weren't confessing under duress. And they found nothing of it. A lot of people came out against him and said, you're lying about this. Like, what do you have to prove? And it was really shocking for a lot of people for this veteran to come out in the defense of the treatment of Nazis, especially when the Nazis were treated just fine. And, as for POWs, I should say. It's a very bizarre chapter of Joseph McCarthy's biography. Again, I really encourage you to read this article, because like I said, I'm just trying to give a few bullet points with it, but it's something I had never heard of until literally yesterday as I was checking something as I edited. And there is a lot of evidence given for this. There are plenty of reports that have gone back and forth, plenty of speeches. There are a lot of moments to point to that this was a very real thing that he did. But some people look at this defense of these Nazi POWs as a bit of like a warm-up act for what was about to happen with the Red Scare, and how he embraced conspiracy theories if they served him, how he opted not to vet propaganda if it served his political purposes, using a lot of inflammatory words, a lot of othering people, right? Like, we're going to other Jewish people, we're going to other communists and those who are gay. So there's a lot of really disturbing parallels in terms of the stances that he takes on certain issues. So again, I'm going to put that article in the show notes below under mentioned in the stories, but it is a very strange, bizarre, and disturbing part of his biography. Okay, now let's really get in further into part 2.
Now that we're in 1950 and shit's hitting the fan, we're going to let's unpin Joseph McCarthy, bring him back in again. He's still in his first term as a junior senator from Wisconsin, flying under the radar, but looking hopefully at re-election. Communism and the Soviet Union was like a really great quote unquote other to rally people against, right? People love to rally around an other. This has been major points of a lot of congressional re-elections, as well as movements and presidential elections, is othering somebody, because if you get people fighting against each other, maybe we're not gonna know what shit you're getting up to. We're not going to be paying attention anyway. I'll have to cut that out. And so othering communists and those from the Soviet Union, it was like a really great platform for people in public office, such as Joe McCarthy, to get support and votes from the people. because that's what they're riled up about. It didn't matter, and this is bipartisan. It did not matter if you were Republican or Democrat. Like the subversion of the American way was, or the American way of life, and American values. That was a bipartisan issue. So either side of the aisle, you could get people on board with you. February 1950. So the next month later, Senator McCarthy is in Wheeling, West Virginia, speaking at a Republican women's group. And this is the moment, y'all. This is when he decides to really go for it. He pulls out a piece of paper, waves it around. There's actually a picture of him doing it. And he says he has 205 names of known communists that were, quote, working and shaping policy in the State Department. What the fuck? 205 names? You have over 205 people that are in the State Department and like actively being subversive. People freaked out. I mean, could you imagine? Card-carrying communists shaping policy in the State Department. From that point on, McCarthy leads this crusade against communism because he riled up some people and got a bit of a fan base. Supporters were like, this man is a true American. He's a true patriot and loves his country.
That's super good timing for him.
Yeah. So he gets to set himself up as like the one man, the white knight, to stand up to communism, which was currently poisoning the world. No, I'm not standing here going to defend any capitalism or communism or anything like that. But this is like this common rallying point that if you lived in a capitalistic or more Western society, watching this spread of communism was really scary. Unless you were a communist and you're like, fuck yeah, I believe in this. And his grandiose, like standing up and waving around this paper made it look like he was really cracking down on this. And anyone before him was being really soft. So it really sets him apart from everyone else. And to those that supported him, he was a man that was going to stand up and fight tooth and nail for freedom. After February 1950, so this period of time after that, when he waves these names, this begins what the history books like to call the Red Scare. But technically, this is like Red Scare Part 2, the rise of McCarthyism. This is like Part 2 Red Scare, or the new Red Scare, the second Red Scare.
Because you said the first one was in the early 1900s.
Yes, with the Bolshevik
I didn't know
Revolution.
that.
Mm-hmm. That was the first time that people were like, ooh, communism, like the Bolsheviks and communism, that's fucking scary. Like the fall of...
That's when Anastasia died, right?
Yeah. So this period of time was 4 years, and it had been gathering steam for all the post-World War II years, and it reaches a fever pitch at this point, February 1950 and on. I do want to point out that I'm going to take like a big picture view of this. As with a lot of moments in history, a lot of big movements in history, there's a lot of nuance, many cogs in the Red Scare machine, some coming from Hoover at the FBI, some are coming out of the CIA. There's a switch in presidents 3/4 of the way through these 4 years, and that creates different avenues for McCarthy to continue on unchecked in his pursuit of the commies. So, and on top of that, it's not like they didn't find a few Soviet spies, right? Like potentially Alger or Hiss. The public view is like, they're already convinced about his perjury, about the espionage anyway. And then in 1953, you have Julius and Ethel Rosenbaum, who were convicted and executed for sharing atomic bomb secrets with the Soviet Union. Yeah, the Rosenbaums.
Well, you know why technically betraying your country is like so bad, right?
Like treason?
It's the only crime outlined in the Constitution.
Mm-hmm.
Is treason. It's literally the only one. So like, that's a big one.
And then in Canada during the same time, there's another conviction for espionage. So I just want to preface what I'm about to say with like, yes, there were some cases. It's not that this was something that was completely fabricated, but however, it seems he fabricated his part in it. So I want to make that distinction and say like, yes, nuance, so many layers, so much discussion. Okay. So I want to go back to those 205 names. Did I say 250 earlier? I might have 205 names on a piece of paper.
I heard 205.
Okay, good. I want to make sure the second time I said it, I didn't switch my numbers. Okay. 205 names. That's me waving that piece of paper around. Known freaking communists in government, 205. Then that number turned into like 57, and then later it turned into 81. So it started changing. McCarthy began having these congressional subcommittees to investigate these claims of his. And again, they were bipartisan. He subpoenaed the shit out of everyone. He was throwing subpoenas around like candy at a parade, like, yeah, everyone's a target. Just take some candy, ting, Smarties, in your face, boom, Tootsie Roll. He went through the State Department, the Defense Department, Military Intelligence, and the Civil Service Commission, which is the agency that oversaw civilian employees of the federal government. So like all the employees of the federal government then like are getting hit with all these subpoenas. And then it goes into Hollywood and writers. So like you were talking about Marilyn Monroe's Arthur Miller. There we go. Arthur Miller famously brought before one of the congressional houses of, was it Un-American Activities or something like that. And like, we know you writers are communists. You give us everyone you know. And people will be like, no. I remember like they went to a meeting one time and then they, or that's about as bad as it, or like as much evidence as they found. Anti-communist propaganda was prevalent with films like I Married a Communist, which, I mean, Arthur Miller, he wrote The Crucible, which is a parable for like the Red Scare, and said it during the Salem witch trials.
There's a lot of groupthink involved in all these stories. Yeah.
Yeah. Despite all the testimonies and the name calling and some of like the just straight up like really shitty, mean rhetoric, like it's just like bully behavior a lot of times. He never technically found a communist, by his criteria, right? He would do all sorts of stuff like, I know you're a communist. I know you are. Just give us the names of the communists. We'll let you go. Like he would just scream at people. And then sometimes it got to the point where people just give names just to stop being harassed or like, not be convicted of anything themselves or not convicted, but go to trial for anything themselves. Yeah. Salem witch trials, Crucible. Despite not finding any evidence to substantiate his claims, his popularity grew. People were still like, he might not have, like, he's finding him. He's searching for him. Technically not really finding anything, but like the fact that he's making a big song and dance about it keeps him relevant.
It's like the laziest person at work. Somehow they always get like, how can they get by on being lazy and not doing any of the real work while everybody else is like, what the fuck?
He was reelected in 1952 and kept right on going with his communist hunt. People were scared, and like he scared a lot of people with it. Like people couldn't trust each other. He's pointing fingers, naming names, dragging people into court, accusing them without evidence or at least nothing that had any sort of substance or value that could be used in court of law. And then he's ruining lives doing it because
I was going to say, and then he ruins your whole reputation and no one wants to hire you, be associated with you.
No one wants to live next to you anymore. You're the communist that lives next door. You can't get a job, destroying lives and relationships with marriages or within families because of accusations. Just getting subpoenaed, right, could have like ruined everything for you. There is a time in America where being a communist meant that you were an enemy of the country. That was treason in a way, in terms of the perception of it. Simply being accused or questioned, you were ostracized by friends and family very frequently. So like, what do you do, right? I also think McCarthy himself is also just unlikable because of something else that's going on concurrently during this time. It's far less known in comparison to the Red Scare, but it's something that we talked about in one of our episodes. It's the Lavender Scare. And with the Lavender Scare, that targeted those who LGBTQ plus. If you were gay, McCarthy took the route of then, well, since it's illegal to be a homosexual, if the Soviet spies get evidence of a government worker who's gay, that person can be coerced and blackmailed to give up government secrets so they're not outed. Therefore, they too need to go because they're they're weak or they have, there's like a weakness there. There's an easy attempt to blackmail. Now, there's an easy attempt to blackmail the guy who's banging his secretary, right? You know what I mean? Like, isn't that blackmail too? Okay. Can't anybody be blackmailed in any sort of way, right? You know what I mean? Like, don't let the gay people be in government. Yuck. So I did a whole episode on that, and that was particularly insidious. So I'll put that in the show notes too. I would say, like with this, and this is something I talk about in the episode also, is that like researching kind of both parts of this, I feel like the Lavender Scare is actually what really kept the Red Scare going, because no communists were ever found by McCarthy. But you know who was? People who happened to be gay. So like hundreds of gay government workers were fired, lives ruined, lives taken. Um, People were being humiliated and outed in a really awful way. And
married people too.
Yeah.
You know, remember a lot of them were married.
And that's
they had a
like,
Judy Garland, man.
That's what's like particularly terrible to me. So yeah, I think like the Red Scare is really bad, but there's like a whole underlying like what's giving it its pulse is like something even more insidious, and so it's like
it really kind of rolls into the whole movement, though. Really, when you think about it, you know, it gives people more to like rise up against, and it riles them up more because it's against a social norm. So it gives whatever movement you have with the Red Scare even more fuel, kind of like what you said. So because it all rolls into the ideology of that's un-American, right? That's what they're running under. That is public enemy number one, which includes people who are not living in nuclear families in heteronormative relationships, you know? So it's like, it just kind of rolls into the whole movement. It's crazy how that happens.
So weird, right? Gross. So hundreds of lives that were affected by this man, Joe McCarthy, and to those around him who spurred him on. So Roy Cohn, I'm looking at that guy. Yeah. Who
is he from Wisconsin too?
He was like the guy that was just like really like fanning the flames for McCarthy and like,
yeah, really, but where's he from?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Offhand.
Hopefully not Wisconsin.
I'm not sure offhand. Sorry, I can look it up. He himself was gay, you know. So those
in really glass houses, you dickhead.
So the thing about the Lavender Scare was that it continued on quietly. So even if the Red Scare itself like finally died out, the Lavender Scare certainly did not. And that went on for decades. While Red Scare, like technically, you know, in terms of like putting a date on it, was like 1954 roughly. In terms of like the fever pitch of it, I would still say the Red Scare is back again or has been going on since then. So let's get back to Joe McCarthy. He's finally stepping in it. 1954, he went after the U.S. Army. So he's like, for these 4 years, he is just hammering everybody in every department, just going after every fucking one. And then he gets to the U.S. Army and he says, there's communists in the Army. And the Army's like, the fuck there are.
I was going to say, I don't know if I'd speak to the U.S. military like that as a senator. You didn't get your ass kicked.
They were, and everyone was suddenly like, what the fuck? He's going after the Army. So television exists at this time. And McCarthy thinks, I don't know if this is like an ego thing, like he was getting so out of control with like this power trip maybe that he was having with all these other departments. But he thinks like these Army hearings, it's going to be really good for the public to see these Army hearings. It's going to make me look really good. I'm going for that reelection. I've been doing this for a while now, you know. It was a 36-day hearing and he looked bad. He was just, I mean, again, there's not any sort of like built arguments or evidence and stuff. He was just attacking and insulting people without this evidence given. And when he was questioned, like, where's your evidence for this or whatever, he would sidestep questions. He wouldn't answer them. And it became really clear to the nation then at that point that he was really overstepping his authority.
Now, he was full of shit.
Yeah. And any common sense, they're like, what? These hearings also famously prompted special counsel for the Army, Joseph Nye Welch, to ask McCarthy, have you no sense of decency, sir? At long last, have you no sense of decency? The guy scolded him. He's like, really? The Army? Now at this, he's been stepping in it for 4 years now with all this. But anyway, the Army is like, that's the last straw. And this is the point where really everything catches up with him and people realize more that he's just like a loud, mean windbag. Like he's just there to attack people and keep diverting and directing this attention.
He was like the first online troll, except he was a senator troll.
Yeah, he's
just trolling everybody the whole fucking time. That's all he was.
Mm-hmm. I bet he taps out some random caps lock in his tweets as well too. If it existed, right? If social media existed, we would have some like bizarre caps lock social media posts from that guy too.
Probably.
So,
in red font.
In red font. So he gets censured from the Senate. He falls from power. He's disgraced. And unfortunately, he...
publicly humiliated.
Yeah.
Why, it's more than I can bear. Sorry,
and he already had a problem with alcohol abuse. So...
the next line is more beer?
Yes.
What for? Nothing helps.
Yeah. He already had an alcohol problem, which got worse after his fall from the Senate. And he passed away only 3 years later from cirrhosis of the liver and liver disease.
Holy crap. That's a lot of drink. I'm sorry, I'm not laughing at that. I'm just like, drinking is not the answer. But like, it just, let that be the ultimate lesson of your addiction will kill you if you let your inner demons consume you and not deal with them and go to therapy.
Yeah, woof. So there was huge censorship that was going on during that time, fueled by McCarthy and his Red Scare, McCarthyism. There was a lot of pro-American propaganda, anti-Soviet propaganda, anti-communist propaganda. Like there's a lot of stuff that was being pushed out during this time to show this real division between like an us and them, West versus East, Soviet versus American, capitalism versus communism.
Like, good versus evil.
Good versus evil. If he dies, he dies. So that's Joseph McCarthy. I know. I said I was going to, sorry, I lied to you guys. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to lie. The celebration episode that I want to have celebration episodes this season. But
we will have fun episodes.
We will have fun episodes. I just, I had that written for a while and I was just not quite finished with my celebration episode that I've been working on for a couple of weeks now. So I was like, it's, you know what? Good. I've had this one in the bank, and I was just talking to our dear friend of the show, Arjun from Deep Into History. We were talking about like what the shit was going on with the Smithsonian and mad about.
There's a lot of parallels in that time and this time, so I see why it's an appropriate thing to do, because as we've spoken about before, those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it. So we do need to know these things, study them closely.
So act on it. Act on your shit. Otherwise, you could just know and don't give a shit, which is what we're seeing.
I can flip you back to 1942 if you'd like to read that section of history.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Too on the nose.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. Like, there's so much. Like, that's what authoritarianism will thrive off of, is confusing people, pitting each other, or pitting people against each other, and confusing them to the point where they feel overwhelmed and won't take action. Find the thing that you can do and do it. For us, it's yapping out on the podcast and stuff like that, you know, and sharing this information with people, just giving the heads up so you know.
Sharing knowledge and power together.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing, is together as people, we are the strength that moves what we want to see in the world. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think people forget that. And when you find your community and you have a strong community, that's a good thing.
Yeah, so Arjun was talking about McCarthyism came up and Joseph McCarthy, and I was like, oh, actually, I've got one.
Yeah, I got a song about
in
that.
The vault. Yeah, I got one in the vault. I think actually I might pull out for the episode this week. So we'll celebrate very soon, y'all. But there you go. That's Joseph McCarthy. I think it's an important thing to talk about. The Red Scare, also the Lavender Scare, which I did as a separate episode. I'll pin that in the show notes. So if you want to learn more about that was an insidious feeder, I think, almost into the Red Scare that lasted decades.
The Red Scare is kind of like the poster child and like almost what I would say the quote unquote cover up of the Lavender one. Almost, I would say. Like,
that's the way to put it, yeah.
Because I never really heard about it and was never even taught it in history books.
Mm-hmm.
I had to wait for you to tell me that. And I was like, how in the hell was this never mentioned in a U.S. history book? Like, that was wild to me.
Yeah.
I feel like any coordinated attack and systemic weeding out in our government should be something that we should hear about in our classrooms. But yeah, so that was like completely new information to me.
Yeah, me too. I only just learned about that. I think like at the time that I did it, I had only learned about it in the last year or so before that, like 1 to 2 years before that. So I had never really heard of it until I was like really digging in more to American history. And
we were past the 50-year mark, so it was released, wasn't it? That was a big part of
probably
it,
something
too.
like that.
Yeah,
more
because that happened in the 60s, which we'd be past the 50-year mark when you did the story and stuff. So that makes a lot of sense.
Sure, that could have been part of it. But yeah, I'll link that because I think it's really great to see how these things are related, how they go in hand. How, I mean, that's how a lot of history is, right? Like it's cause and effect. It's cause and effect. It's like one big experiment of like, what does this thing do if you pull that and it happens to make this thing happen or whatever. So that's all. It's all part of it. And then you see like the ripple effects of it in many ways. I think today we're having kind of echoes of that. Not so much red per se, like the Red Scare, but it's like a scare of, I mean, again, it's like it's othering of people, right? Like I think
that's really what it comes down to. It's a good, I know it's a broad stroke, but it's a good it's a good wide angle portrait of like what you should look for or pay attention to, I guess, if you're looking at a repeat of history. It's kind of a good guideline, and it's a really interesting way to put it. Or when you listen to certain rhetoric from people, just in your everyday life, when you hear that othering, you're like, now hold on a second. Like, I don't know that I agree with that, you know? An interesting take. I like that. I like that wide angle lens right there. Thanks, champion.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, I definitely remember learning about Joseph McCarthy and McCarthyism, and I think it was a McCarthyism and Red Scare, maybe his actual name. Those were like 3 terms in the back of my history chapter, right? You know, that was our history homework for the most part through high school, was like read the chapter, answer the questions at the end, and you did like terms and definitions, and then years,
little essay
like
questions and stuff. And then there's always multiple choice. I hate multiple choice. Well, like I heard answer. I think it was some Scandinavian country that said, we don't do multiple choice. It's just a blank. You either know the answer or you don't. And I was like, fucking oath. Why is that not like that everywhere? Yes. I don't want the answer spoon fed to me. I should just know it. What a concept.
Yeah. Thanks, Katie, for listening about the Red Scare and McCarthyism and everything. Thank you to all of you for joining us in the Smoke Circle today. That was episode 3 in the books then. So I've got 3 more episodes. Katie's got 4 more. So we're going to go to a total of 10 for this season, 5 from each of us. So we're going to do it all again in a couple weeks is what I'm saying. Katie will be back with you, telling her bit of history. Make sure that you are following us on social media. We're at High Tales of History on Instagram or High Tales of History Pod. All of our social media will be directly linked in the show notes. If you like the show, make sure you give it a follow, a like, a subscribe. I'm trying to get to the next 100 milestone. We're so close to the next we're like the next 100 marker. So I'd like to do that. So make sure you're following us. Make sure you're following us on Spotify, especially because that one's the one that's really close. In the meantime, get money, get high, give love, and
don't be a troll. Don't be a troll. Go to therapy, work on your insecurities, be a better person. Yeah. That's my life advice for you this week.
Don't be a McCarthy, folks. Don't be a McCarthy.
Unless it's Melissa McCarthy.
Or Paul? Is Paul okay? I don't know. I'm not really sure where Paul is.
McCarthy, not McCartney.
Oh, that's right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
I'll see myself out. Okay, bye. Fuck. I know that too.
I know. So I was like, that.